Mia Lawson's fingers trembled as she fumbled with her keys outside the Lawson Gallery. The early morning sun cast long shadows down the quiet New York street, the city not quite awake. At 42, Mia had built her modern art gallery into one of the most respected in the city. But lately, the weight of her secret threatened to topple everything she'd worked for. As she pushed open the door, the familiar scent of paint and polish usually brought comfort. Today, it only heightened her anxiety. Mia made her way through the dim gallery, her heels clicking on the polished concrete floor. She flicked on the lights, illuminating the stark white walls adorned with vibrant, abstract pieces. Mia paused, frowning. Something felt off. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on an empty space where the crown jewel of her current exhibition should have been. No, she whispered, her heart racing. No, no, no. The Renata Cruz painting, a swirling masterpiece of blues and golds valued at over $2 million, was gone. Panic rose in Mia's throat as she rushed to the spot, her hands running over the bare wall as if the painting might magically reappear beneath her touch. That's when she noticed the smears on her sleeve, blue and gold paint, still tacky to the touch. Mia stumbled back, her mind reeling. She couldn't remember coming to the gallery last night. But the evidence was there on her clothes, wasn't it? Had she taken the painting? Destroyed it? The gaps in her memory, once a source of private fear, now felt like a chasm, threatening to swallow her whole. She closed her eyes, trying desperately to recall the events of the previous evening. Fragments of memories flitted through her mind: a glass of wine at her desk, a call from a potential buyer, the soft glow of the gallery at night. But nothing about the painting. Nothing about how she'd gotten paint on her clothes. The sound of the front door opening made Mia jump. She quickly pulled her jacket closed, hiding the paint stains. "Morning, Mia," Zach's cheerful voice carried through the gallery. At 28, her assistant's energy sometimes exhausted Mia, but his dedication was unquestionable. "Zach," Mia managed, trying to keep her voice steady. "You're in early." Zach rounded the corner, his smile fading as he took in Mia's pale face and the conspicuously empty wall. "What's going on? Where's the cruise?" Mia opened her mouth, but no words came out. How could she explain what she didn't understand herself? The room seemed to tilt, memories and fears blurring together. "Mia?" Zach's voice sounded far away. "Should I call the police?" Police. The word cut through Mia's haze. She couldn't let them investigate. Couldn't risk them discovering what she herself feared, that in a moment of confusion, she had destroyed a priceless work of art. "No," she said quickly, perhaps too quickly. "No police, not yet. We need to be sure it's really gone." Zach's brow furrowed. "But Mia, it's clearly not here. This is theft. We have to report it." Mia shook her head, buying time. "Let's check the storage room first. Maybe I moved it last night for safekeeping and forgot." The lie felt hollow even as she said it. As Zach hurried to the back, Mia leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. The diagnosis she'd received 6 months ago echoed in her mind: early onset Alzheimer's. Mia had built her gallery from the ground up, and it was her life's work. She feared that if people knew about her condition, she would be forced to give up control of the gallery prematurely. She had told no one, determined to keep running her gallery as long as she could. But now, faced with this blank space on the wall and the damning evidence on her clothes, Mia wondered if her time had run out sooner than she'd feared. The first signs had been subtle: misplaced keys, forgotten appointments, the occasional struggle to find the right word. Mia had dismissed them as stress, the natural consequence of running a high-pressure business in the cutthroat New York art world. But when she'd found herself momentarily unable to remember the name of her oldest friend at a gallery opening, the fear had become impossible to ignore. The neurologist's words still rang in her ears: early onset Alzheimer's disease. It's progressing faster than we'd like. He'd talked about treatments, clinical trials, support groups. Mia had nodded along, but inside, she'd already been planning how to hide it, how to keep her gallery, her life's work, safe from the ravages of her failing mind. "It's not in storage," Zach called, jogging back into the main gallery. "Mia, we have to call the police. This is serious." Mia nodded numbly, her mind racing. As Zach pulled out his phone, she excused herself, hurrying to her office. She had to think, had to remember. She sank into her chair, her eyes falling on the framed photo on her desk. It was from the gallery's opening night 5 years ago. Mia stood proudly in front of the Lawson Gallery sign, her dark hair sleek, her smile confident. She'd been so sure of herself then, so certain of her path. Now that certainty felt like a distant dream. Mia ran her fingers over the frame, wondering how much longer she'd be able to recognize the woman in the photo. How much longer before her staff, her artists, her clients started to notice the cracks in her facade. A knock at the door startled her. Mia? Zach's voice was tentative. The police are on their way. They'll want to talk to you. Mia's heart raced. She had to pull herself together, had to find a way to explain the missing painting without incriminating herself. But how could she explain something she couldn't remember? I'll be right out, she called, her voice steadier than she felt. As she stood, smoothing her jacket and taking a deep breath, Mia caught sight of her calendar. Circled in red was tomorrow's date, the opening of a new exhibition featuring works from several up-and-coming artists. Artists who had trusted her with their creations, their futures. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about the artist who depended on her, the staff who relied on her, the legacy she'd built. She couldn't let it all crumble because of one missing painting, no matter how valuable, no matter how damning the evidence against her seemed. With a final glance at her reflection, Mia straightened her shoulders and walked out of her office. Whatever had happened to the Renata Cruz painting, she would face it. She had to. The alternative, admitting defeat, revealing her diagnosis, watching her carefully constructed world fall apart, was unthinkable. As she emerged into the gallery, the first police sirens could be heard in the distance. Mia exchanged a look with Zach, whose worry was evident in his furrowed brow. She managed a small, reassuring smile. It'll be okay, she said, as much to herself as to him. We'll figure this out. But as the sirens grew louder, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of a precipice, with the ground crumbling beneath her feet. The blank space on the wall seemed to mock her, a stark reminder of the gaps in her memory, and of the uncertain future that lay ahead. Detective Laura Chen arrived at the Lawson Gallery with her partner, Detective Mike Reeves, just as the morning rush hour was hitting its stride. The gallery's pristine facade stood in stark contrast to the bustling New York street, a haven of culture amidst the urban chaos. As they stepped inside, Laura's keen eyes immediately took in the scene. The empty space on the wall was glaringly obvious, a void in the otherwise meticulously curated exhibition. She noticed the gallery owner, Mia Lawson, standing nearby, her posture rigid and her eyes darting nervously. Miss Lawson, Laura approached, extending her hand. I'm Detective Chen, and this is my partner, Detective Reeves. We understand you've had a theft? Mia shook her hand, her grip firmer than Laura expected. Yes, thank you for coming so quickly. It's a bit of a shock. Laura nodded sympathetically. Can you walk us through what happened? When did you last see the painting? Mia hesitated, and Laura didn't miss the quick glance she threw towards her assistant before answering. I I'm not entirely sure. It was here when we closed last night. I came in this morning and it was gone. Detective Reeves was already examining the empty wall space. No signs of forced entry on the frame or the wall. Whoever took it knew what they were doing. Laura turned her attention to the young man hovering nearby. And you are? Zach Thompson, Ms. Lawson's assistant, he replied, stepping forward. I arrived after Mia this morning. The painting was already missing. Laura made a note in her pad. And neither of you noticed anything unusual when you left last night? Both Mia and Zach shook their heads. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Years on the force had honed her instincts, and right now they were telling her that Mia Lawson was hiding something. Ms. Lawson, can you tell us more about the painting? Its value, any recent interest from buyers? Mia seemed to relax slightly, on more familiar ground. It's a Renata Cruz original, titled Echoes of Silence. It's valued at just over $2 million. We've had several interested parties, but no firm offers yet. Any disgruntled employees or artists you've turned down recently? Reeves asked, rejoining the conversation. Mia shook her head. No, nothing like that. We're very selective about the artists we represent, but we pride ourselves on maintaining good relationships, even with those we can't take on. Laura nodded, making more notes. We'll need to see your security footage from last night. A flash of panic crossed Mia's face, so brief Laura almost missed it. Of course, Mia said, her voice carefully controlled. Zach can show you to the security office. As Zach led Detective Reeves away, Laura turned back to Mia. Ms. Lawson, is there anything else you can tell me? Anything at all, even if it seems insignificant? Mia hesitated, and for a moment Laura thought she might confess something. But then the gallery owner's expression hardened. No, detective, I've told you everything I know. Laura held Mia's gaze for a long moment before nodding. All right, we'll need a list of everyone who had access to the gallery after hours, and any documentation you have on the painting. Provenance, insurance papers, that sort of thing. As Mia moved to gather the requested items, Laura took a moment to survey the gallery. Her eyes landed on a small smudge of blue paint on the edge of a nearby sculpture base. She crouched down to examine it more closely. Ms. Lawson, she called out, do you know where this paint came from? It looks fresh. Mia hurried over, her face paling slightly as she saw the smudge. I'm not sure. We had some touch-up work done recently. It must have been overlooked in the cleanup. Laura nodded, unconvinced. She made a mental note to have the lab analyze the paint. If it matched the missing painting, they might have their first real lead. Just then, Detective Reeves returned, a puzzled expression on his face. The security footage from last night is missing. The system shows a gap between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Laura's eyebrows shot up. She turned to Mia, whose composure seemed to be cracking. Ms. Lawson, can you explain this? Mia shook her head. I don't understand. That's never happened before. Laura exchanged a look with her partner. This case was becoming more intriguing by the minute. We'll need to take the security system in for analysis. Mr. Thompson, can you show us where the main unit is located? As Zach led Reeves away again, Laura turned back to Mia. Ms. Lawson, I have to ask, where were you between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. last night? Mia's eyes widened, a mix of fear and something else. Confusion? Flashing across her face. I I was at home, sleeping. I always leave the gallery by 9 p.m. Laura nodded slowly, noting the tremor in Mia's hands. And can anyone confirm that? Mia shook her head. I live alone? I see, Laura said, jotting down a few more notes. We'll need to verify that, of course. Standard procedure. Mia nodded numbly, her earlier composure all but gone. Laura felt a twinge of sympathy, quickly suppressed by her professional instincts. Something wasn't adding up, and she was determined to get to the bottom of it. One more thing, Ms. Lawson, Laura said, her tone gentle but firm. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Anything at all that might help us understand what happened here? For a moment, it seemed like Mia might break. Her lips parted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. But then, as quickly as it had appeared, the vulnerability vanished, replaced by a mask of professional courtesy. No, detective, Mia said, her voice steady once more. I've told you everything I know. Laura nodded, knowing a dead end when she saw one, for now. All right, we'll be in touch. Please don't leave town without informing us, and call immediately if you remember anything else. As she and Reeves left the gallery, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that Mia Lawson was at the center of this mystery. Whether as a victim or a perpetrator remained to be seen. One thing was certain, the case of the missing Renata Cruz painting was far from a simple theft, and Laura Chen was determined to uncover the truth, no matter where it led. The days following the theft blurred together for Mia. She found herself jumping at every phone call, every unexpected visitor to the gallery. The constant fear of discovery warred with her desperate need to remember what had happened that night. It was late afternoon, and Mia sat in her office, staring blankly at the computer screen. She'd been trying to write an email to the artist whose exhibition was supposed to open in 2 days, but the words wouldn't come. How could she focus on new art when a priceless painting was missing, possibly destroyed by her own hands? A soft knock on the door startled her. Come in, she called, quickly minimizing the empty email draft. Zach poked his head in, his usual cheerful demeanor subdued. Mia, there's someone here to see you. Says it's important. Mia's heart raced. Had the police returned? Had they discovered something? Who is it? She asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. He says his name is Marcus Blackwood, from Argus Security? Mia frowned. The name was vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. Send him in, please. A moment later, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes entered the office. He carried himself with the confidence of someone used to command, and Mia found herself sitting up straighter in response. Ms. Lawson, he said, his voice deep and gravelly, thank you for seeing me on such short notice. I'm Marcus Blackwood, head of special investigations at Argus Security. Mia shook his hand, a sense of unease growing. How can I help you, Mr. Blackwood? He settled into the chair across from her desk, his gaze never leaving her face. I'm here about the Renata Cruz painting, more specifically about its disappearance. Mia felt the blood drain from her face. I've already spoken to the police about that. I'm not sure what else I can tell you. Blackwood leaned forward slightly. Ms. Lawson, Argus Security isn't just another private security firm. We specialize in delicate matters, matters that our clients would prefer to keep out of official channels. I don't understand, Mia said, her mouth dry. Are you saying you know something about the painting? A small smile played at the corners of Blackwood's mouth. Let's just say we have resources that the police don't. Resources that might be able to recover your painting quietly without any unfortunate publicity. Mia's mind raced. Was this a threat? An offer of help? Or something else entirely? Mr. Blackwood, I appreciate your offer, but I'm not sure what you're implying. The police are already investigating. Blackwood nodded slowly. Of course. But we both know the police have limitations. They have to follow procedures, file reports. What if there were aspects of this situation that you prefer to keep private? Mia felt a chill run down her spine. Did he know something? Or was this just a fishing expedition? She decided to play it safe. I'm sorry, but I've told the police everything I know. If you have information about the painting, I think you should speak to them. Blackwood studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. I understand your hesitation, Ms. Lawson, but situations like these have a way of evolving. If you change your mind or if you remember any details you might not want to share with the authorities, please don't hesitate to call, day or night. Mia took the card, her fingers trembling slightly. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. I'll keep that in mind. As she showed him out, Mia caught Zack watching her with concern. She managed a weak smile before retreating back to her office, Blackwood's card burning a hole in her pocket. Once alone, Mia sank into her chair, her head in her hands. The visit from Blackwood had shaken her more than she cared to admit. Was he truly offering help? Or was this some kind of elaborate trap? She pulled out the business card, studying it. Sleek black with silver lettering, it gave nothing away beyond Blackwood's name and a phone number. No company logo, no address. Just like the man himself, it raised more questions than it answered. A sudden wave of exhaustion washed over Mia. The strain of the past few days, coupled with her constant battle against her own failing memory, left her feeling drained. She leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes for just a moment. Images flashed behind her eyelids, fractured memories of the night the painting disappeared. The soft glow of the gallery lights, the smell of turpentine, a flash of blue and gold, and something else. A figure in the shadows? Mia's eyes snapped open, her heart pounding. Was that a real memory or just her imagination filling in the blanks? She pressed her palms against her eyes, willing the fragments to coalesce into something coherent. But like sand slipping through her fingers, the images faded, leaving her with nothing but a gnawing uncertainty. She glanced at the clock, surprised to see how late it had gotten. The gallery would be closing soon. Mia gathered her things, her movements mechanical. As she stepped out of her office, she nearly collided with Zack. Oh, Mia, I was just coming to check on you, he said, steadying her. Are you okay? That guy seemed intense. Mia forced a smile. I'm fine, Zack. Just tired. It's been a long week. Zack nodded, his expression sympathetic. You should go home. Get some rest. I can lock up tonight. Thanks, Zack. I think I will. Mia hesitated, then added, You've been a real lifesaver this week. I don't know what I'd do without you. A flicker of something, guilt, crossed Zack's face, but it was gone so quickly Mia thought she must have imagined it. Just doing my job, he said with a small smile. Get some sleep, okay? Things will look better in the morning. As Mia made her way home, Blackwood's words echoed in her mind. Situations like these have a way of evolving. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial, some vital piece of the puzzle that would make everything clear. Back in her apartment, Mia poured herself a glass of wine, hoping it would calm her nerves. She found herself staring at the blank wall above her fireplace, where a small Renata Cruz sketch usually hung. She'd taken it down the day after the theft, unable to bear the reminder of what she'd lost, what she might have destroyed. The wine did little to quiet her racing thoughts. What if she had taken the painting? What if, in a moment of confusion, she'd done something irreparable? The thought of losing not just her gallery, but her freedom, her reputation, it was almost too much to bear. But another possibility nagged at her. What if she was innocent? What if someone else had taken the painting, taking advantage of her condition to frame her? The figure in the shadows from her fragmented memory teased at the edges of her consciousness. Mia's gaze fell on her phone, Blackwood's card lying next to it. She picked up the card, turning it over in her hands. Could he really help? Or would reaching out to him only make things worse? As the night deepened around her, Mia Lawson found herself at a crossroads. Trust the police and hope her innocence would be proven? Reach out to the mysterious Blackwood and his promises of discretion? Or continue to search her fractured memories for the truth, risking her sanity in the process? One thing was certain: time was running out. And as the shadows of doubt grew longer, Mia knew that soon she would have to make a choice that could cost her everything she held dear. The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, matching Mia's mood as she made her way to the gallery. As she approached the building, she saw a familiar figure waiting by the entrance. Detective Laura Chen stood under a black umbrella, her expression unreadable. Mia's heart sank. This couldn't be good. "Ms. Lawson?" Laura greeted her as she approached. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by so early. We need to talk." Mia nodded, fumbling with her keys. "Of course, Detective. Come in." Once inside, Mia led Laura to her office, grateful for the few moments it gave her to compose herself. As they sat down, Laura pulled out a small notebook. "Miss Lawson, we've been analyzing the security footage from the surrounding buildings on the night of the theft," Laura began. "We've found something interesting." Mia's mouth went dry. "Oh?" Laura's gaze was steady. "The cameras show you entering the gallery at 11:15 p.m., about 2 hours after you claim to have left for the night. You don't leave again until nearly 1 a.m. The room seemed to tilt. Mia gripped the arms of her chair, struggling to process this information. That's impossible. I was home. I must have been home." "Miss Lawson," Laura's voice was gentle but firm, "is there something you're not telling us? Because right now, the evidence is pointing very clearly in one direction." Mia closed her eyes, her mind racing. Should she tell the truth? Admit to her condition? Or continue to deny everything and hope for a miracle? Before she could decide, there was a commotion outside the office. Zach's voice, raised in protest, followed by the sound of the door bursting open. Marcus Blackwood strode in, looking as composed as ever despite the early hour and the rain. Behind him, Zach hovered anxiously. "I'm sorry, Mia," Zach said. "He just pushed past me. Should I call security?" Blackwood's lips quirked in a small smile. "That won't be necessary. I believe I have information that everyone in this room will find illuminating." Laura stood, her posture tense. "And you are?" "Marcus Blackwood, Argus Security," he replied smoothly, handing her a business card. "I've been conducting a parallel investigation into the missing painting." Laura's eyes narrowed. "On whose authority?" "That's not important right now," Blackwood said, waving a hand dismissively. "What's important is what we've uncovered." He turned to Mia. "Ms. Lawson, I owe you an apology. We've been watching you, believing you might lead us to the painting. But it turns out you're as much a victim in this as anyone." Mia's head was spinning. "I don't understand. What are you talking about?" Blackwood's expression softened slightly. "We know about your condition, Ms. Lawson. The early onset Alzheimer's. It's why you couldn't remember being at the gallery that night." Mia felt the blood drain from her face. Her secret, which she'd guarded so carefully, was bare in front of everyone. She glanced at Zach, saw the shock and hurt in his eyes. "Mia? Is this true?" She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Laura leaned forward, her detective's instincts clearly piqued. "Mr. Blackwood, you still haven't explained how this relates to the missing painting." Blackwood nodded. "Of course. You see, Ms. Lawson did return to the gallery that night, but she wasn't alone." He pulled out a tablet, swiping to bring up a grainy image. "This was captured by a security camera across the street. If you look closely, you can see someone else entering the gallery just after Ms. Lawson." They all leaned in to look. The image was blurry, but there was clearly a second figure slipping in behind Mia. "We've enhanced the image as much as possible," Blackwood continued. He tapped the screen, and the picture zoomed in on the second figure. "I believe you'll recognize him, Ms. Lawson." Mia gasped. The face looking back at her, partially obscured but unmistakable, was Zach's. The room erupted into chaos. Laura was on her feet, reaching for her handcuffs. Zach backed away, his face a mask of panic. Mia sat frozen, unable to process what she was seeing. "Wait!" Zach cried out. It's not what you think. I can explain. Laura paused, her hand on her weapon. Then start talking. Now. Zach's shoulders slumped. He looked at Mia, his eyes filled with remorse. I'm so sorry, Mia. I never meant for it to go this far. As Zach began to speak, the full story slowly emerged. He had noticed Mia's increasing forgetfulness, the little slips that were becoming more frequent. Worried about her, he had followed her to the gallery that night, intending to make sure she got home safely. But when he saw her remove the painting from the wall, he panicked. Thinking she was having some kind of episode, he had taken the painting, intending to return it once he figured out what was going on. I was going to bring it back, Zach said, his voice breaking. But then the police got involved, and I didn't know how to explain without betraying Mia's secret. I was trying to protect her. Mia listened in stunned silence, fragments of memory clicking into place. The figure in the shadows, the paint on her clothes, from touching the still wet canvas, as she'd impulsively decided to move it, a decision her addled mind had then forgotten. Laura turned to Blackwood. And how exactly did you piece all this together? Blackwood smiled enigmatically. Argus Security has resources that go beyond traditional law enforcement. Let's just say we have a vested interest in recovering stolen art without unnecessary complications. As the reality of the situation sank in, Mia felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The painting was safe. She wasn't losing her mind, at least not completely. But the trust she'd placed in Zach, the relationship they'd built over years of working together, lay in tatters. Laura was already on her phone, calling for backup to retrieve the painting and formally arrest Zach. Blackwood stood to the side, watching the scene unfold with an air of satisfaction. And Mia? She sat at her desk, feeling oddly detached from the commotion around her. The truth was out about the painting, about her condition. There would be no more hiding, no more pretending. As she watched Zach being led away in handcuffs, his face a mask of regret, Mia realized that this was both an ending and a beginning. The old chapter of her life, the secrecy, the fear, the constant struggle to maintain control, was over. What the new chapter would bring, she didn't know. But as she met Laura's sympathetic gaze and felt the reassuring weight of Blackwood's hand on her shoulder, Mia knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, she wouldn't have to face it alone. The weeks following the revelation of the painting's theft and Mia's diagnosis were a whirlwind of activity. The art world buzzed with gossip, the story of the stolen Renata Cruz painting, and the gallery owner with early onset Alzheimer's making headlines in every major publication. Mia sat in her office, staring out the window at the bustling New York street below. The Renata Cruz painting had been returned to its place of honor in the gallery, drawing curious onlookers and serious collectors alike. Zach was awaiting trial, having been released on bail. The betrayal still stung, but Mia found herself feeling more pity than anger towards her former assistant. A soft knock on the door interrupted her reverie. Come in, she called, turning away from the window. Emily Chen, her new assistant, poked her head in. Ms. Lawson, your 3 o'clock is here. Mia smiled, grateful for Emily's quiet efficiency. Thank you, Emily. Send them in, please. As Emily retreated, Marcus Blackwood strode into the office, looking as impeccable as ever in a tailored gray suit. Ms. Lawson, he greeted her warmly. How are you holding up? Mia gestured for him to take a seat. I'm doing better, I think. It's been an adjustment, but I'm managing. Blackwood nodded, his expression sympathetic. I'm glad to hear it. I hope you don't mind me checking in. I've grown rather fond of you and this gallery. Mia raised an eyebrow. Is that why you're here? A social call? A small smile played at the corners of Blackwood's mouth. Not entirely. I have a proposition for you. Oh? Mia leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. Blackwood's eyes gleamed. Argus Security is looking to expand its art recovery division. We need someone with insider knowledge of the art world. Someone who understands the delicate nature of these situations. Someone like you, Mia. Mia blinked, taken aback. Me? But my condition is precisely why you'd be perfect for this role, Blackwood finished. Your experience, both as a gallery owner and as someone navigating early onset Alzheimer's, gives you a unique perspective. We're not looking for field operatives, Mia. We need consultants, advisors, people who can help us understand the nuances of each case. Mia sat back, her mind racing. It was an intriguing offer, one that would allow her to stay connected to the art world she loved even as her condition progressed. But could she really leave behind the gallery she'd built from the ground up? As if reading her thoughts, Blackwood continued, "You wouldn't have to give up the gallery entirely. We're proposing a part-time consulting role, at least to start. It would give you a chance to see if it's a good fit, while also allowing you to gradually step back from the day-to-day operations here as needed." Mia nodded slowly, considering. "It's an interesting proposition, Marcus, but I need some time to think about it." "Of course," Blackwood said, standing. "Take all the time you need. We're in no rush." As he turned to leave, Mia called out, "Marcus, thank you for everything." He smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "You're welcome, Mia. I look forward to hearing your decision." After Blackwood left, Mia found herself once again staring out the window, her thoughts swirling. The idea of a new challenge, a new way to apply her expertise, was undeniably appealing. But could she really leave behind the gallery that had been her life's work? Her gaze fell on the Renata Cruz painting, its swirls of blue and gold as vibrant as ever. She remembered the fear and confusion of those days when it was missing, the way her mind had played tricks on her. But she also remembered the strength she'd found within herself, the support that had come from unexpected places. Mia stood, walking over to the painting. She reached out, her fingers hovering just above the canvas, tracing the curves and whorls without touching. This painting, this piece of art that had caused so much turmoil, now represented something else to her: resilience, adaptation, the beauty that could emerge from chaos. She turned, taking in the gallery she'd built, the space she'd poured her heart and soul into. It was still hers, still a testament to her vision and hard work. But perhaps it was time for it to become something more, a legacy that could continue even as she embarked on a new journey. Mia walked back to her desk, picked up her phone, and dialed a number. "Marcus, it's Mia. I've made my decision." As she spoke, laying out her thoughts and conditions, Mia felt a sense of peace settle over her. The future was still uncertain, her condition a constant shadow on the horizon. But for the first time in months, she felt hopeful, excited even. The gallery would always be a part of her, but it no longer defined her entirely. There were new canvases to explore, new challenges to face, and Mia Lawson was ready to pick up the brush and start painting her next masterpiece. As she hung up the phone, Mia looked once more at the Renata Cruz painting. Its swirling patterns seemed to shift and change before her eyes, reminding her that beauty could be found in transformation, in the blending of old and new. With a smile, Mia turned to her computer and began to type. There was work to be done, a transition to plan, a future to shape. And for the first time in a long while, Mia felt truly, vibrantly alive. The shadows of doubt that had plagued her for so long began to recede, replaced by the warm glow of possibility. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Mia knew she would face them with the same passion and determination that had brought her this far. As the late afternoon sun painted the gallery in hues of gold, Mia Lawson stood at the threshold of a new chapter, ready to embrace whatever the future might hold.